Hello everybody, how is everybody doing today? So I have a question. How many of you have played violent video games as a child, so violent that you felt inclined to hide the fact that you were playing it from your parents? If so, you are not alone. Parents do tend to believe that violent video games will give children a predisposition towards violence when they get older. I am here to tell you all why that is a false notion. So personally, I own 434 video games. I play them all the time. I am also studying psychology at university. All of you are either parents or prospective parents, or you know somebody who is. So this could be very important information for future reference. So today we'll be talking first about why it's so difficult to actually classify what a violent video game is. Then we'll be discussing the only real valid argument that video games cause violence is severely flawed. And lastly, we'll be talking about why video games may actually have a positive result on the development of young children. So, first off, there are two opposable qualities about video games: aggressiveness and weaponry. As far as aggressiveness goes, regardless of the 12-year-olds that you'll hear yelling on Xbox Live about what they would do to your mother, is it possible for actual aggressive and hostile tendencies to develop from playing video games? Well, according to Przybylski and Associates, frustration, which leads into aggression that develops from video games, comes from a subjective game-to-game basis, not from the content of the game, and definitely not from violence within the game. Additionally, the weaponry basis. Many parents are concerned that the games their children are playing are glorifying gun use and making it seem cool for the kids to use later on in their life. Well, what about games such as Portal that are based entirely around a weapon but have no real violence, so to speak of? Or what about games like Minecraft, which is universally recognized as being super kid-friendly and has almost no weapons, so to speak of, in the game, but you can go and slaughter whole fields of animals if you would like? Anyway, my next point is the main study referenced in the notion that video games cause violence. There's really only one study that was done in a statistically significant and valid way. That is the Bandura and Associates experiment that was done in 1961. In this experiment, children between the ages of 3 and 6 were subjected to watching a video of an adult doing one of various things to a Bobo doll. The study did conclusively find that children who had watched the Bobo doll get abused would in turn abuse the Bobo doll equally, if not more, when given the chance themselves. There are two problems with this. First of all, do you know what a Bobo doll is? It's an inflatable, clown-resembling, life-size doll with a weight in the bottom, so it's like a punching bag. You punch it, it comes right back to you. It's fun. Children don't think of that as violent. They think of it as a fun activity where you punch a doll. That's all there is to it to them. And then next, and most importantly, an innocent child slapping a doll cannot be generalized to this, where demonic tentacles are ripping people apart. There is no generalization involved. Yes, the study's old, but you cannot use it as a supporting piece of evidence for why video games cause violence. Either way, the next point is, it's actually quite possible for social safety to be improved in children through video game playing. Granick and Associates have found through studies that spatial navigation, visual recognition, memory, and reasoning are all greatly improved in children that regularly play action games. Not just any games, but action games, mind you. Plus, Education Scotland posted in their Crime and Law segment that 70% of adolescents that had prior indicated themselves as being bored throughout their childhood had indulged in some sort of petty crime. Well, video games serve as an adequate distraction most of the time to these delinquency acts. So overall, hopefully it's now evident to many of you that video games are really quite unlikely to cause violence. We discussed why it's really quite flaky, the definition of violence in video games to begin with. We also discussed why the only real piece of supporting evidence for the notion that video games cause violence is completely flawed in this generalization. And then lastly, we discussed how it's actually quite possible for video games to help children through their childhood development. So the next time your parents are talking about how you should not play Grand Theft Auto, tell them why they are extremely wrong.